little friends! Welcome to Bright Buddies!
In a peaceful village, there lived a small donkey named Dobby. He was not as strong as the horses or oxen on the farm, but he was hardworking and kind. Every day, Dobby carried vegetables, grain, and supplies for the farmer. Although he worked very hard, the other animals often laughed at him. "Look how weak he is," the horses would say. Dobby felt sad whenever he heard those words. He wished he could be stronger. One evening, Dobby sat alone beneath a large tree. An old wise goat noticed his sadness and walked over. "Why are you upset, Dobby?" asked the goat. "The other animals laugh at me because I'm weak," Dobby replied. The goat smiled and said, "Strength is useful, but smart thinking is even more powerful. A wise mind can solve problems that muscles cannot." Dobby thought about the goat's words, but he didn't fully understand them. The next morning, the farmer loaded 2 heavy sacks of salt onto Dobby's back. "Please deliver these to the town market," said the farmer. Dobby began his journey. The road was long and the sacks were very heavy. The sun grew hotter, and Dobby became tired. After walking for several hours, he reached a small river. As he carefully crossed the river, his hoof slipped on a wet rock. Splash! Dobby fell into the water. When he stood up again, he noticed something surprising. His load felt much lighter. As he continued walking, he realized why. The salt inside the sacks had dissolved in the water. Because some of the salt was gone, the sacks became lighter. Dobby happily completed his delivery. That night, he kept thinking about what had happened. The next morning, the farmer again loaded sacks of salt onto Dobby's back. As Dobby approached the river, he remembered the previous day. A clever idea came into his mind. "If I sit in the water on purpose, the salt will dissolve, and my load will become lighter," he thought. When he reached the river, he slowly sat down in the water. Just as he expected, the salt dissolved, and the load became lighter. Dobby smiled proudly. "I am very smart," he thought. However, the farmer had secretly watched everything. He realized that Dobby was using a trick to avoid carrying the full load. The farmer decided to teach him a lesson. The next day, the farmer loaded 2 large sacks onto Dobby's back once again. Dobby assumed they contained salt. Confidently, he started his journey. When he reached the river, he immediately sat down in the water. But this time, something unexpected happened. The sacks were not filled with salt. They were filled with cotton. As the cotton absorbed water, it became heavier and heavier. Soon, the load weighed much more than before. Dobby struggled to stand up. His legs shook. His back ached. Every step became difficult. Slowly and painfully, he crossed the river and continued his journey. By the time he returned to the farm, he was completely exhausted. The farmer approached him and asked, "What happened today, Dobby?" Dobby lowered his head. He felt ashamed. Finally, he admitted everything. He told the farmer how he had intentionally sat in the river to make the salt dissolve. The farmer listened quietly. Just then, the wise goat walked over. "Dobby," said the goat gently, "there is a difference between being clever and being wise." Dobby looked up. The goat continued, "Being clever helps you find tricks. Being wise helps you make good decisions. True intelligence should be used honestly, not to avoid responsibility." Dobby finally understood. He realized that he had used his intelligence in the wrong way. From that day forward, he stopped looking for shortcuts. Instead, he worked honestly and used his mind to solve problems the right way. Over time, the other animals noticed the change. They stopped laughing at him. In fact, they began to respect him. Dobby learned that he didn't need to be the strongest animal on the farm. What mattered most was having wisdom, honesty, and good judgment. And from that day on, Dobby became one of the most respected animals in the village. Moral of the story: true intelligence is not about finding shortcuts. It is about making wise and honest decisions. Smart thinking combined with hard work always leads to the best outcome.
Subscribe to Bright Buddies. Thank you for watching.